This episode is brought to you by Naked Fig Soap. Shop over a dozen handcrafted artisan soaps locally sourced and made in Arizona using the finest non-toxic intentional ingredients. Naked Fig Soap also offers facial care products along with accessories like soap dishes, soap saver bags, and more.
Visit their website at nakedfigsoap.com and use code DRUMMINGUP, all one word, for 20% off online orders. And that is the best place to find her now.
Yes.
She doesn't really have a storefront so much as she
As
has
of right now.
Yeah, as of right now,
Yes.
she has her products in certain locations,
Yes.
which again is the best place to find her is at her nakedfigsoap.com website
Yes.
or her socials. Instagram is a great spot to find her. Ask her any questions where she's going to be at like a farmer's market.
Yes.
You can find all that out. Or
But coming up, she's
Yeah.
moving to bigger and better opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. And we're very happy to hear that because,
Yes.
we just want to make
She's one
sure
of our
she's doing
favorite,
okay.
favorite companies.
Oh, yeah. Whenever we're getting low, we always place our order.
Yes.
And again, use that code drumming up,
Yes.
all one word, to get that 20% off discount.
For sure.
nakedfigsoap.com. It'll be in the show notes. We'll have her website. And then the best thing to do is from the website, go find her socials, follow her. That helps her. And by you doing that, it helps us because we know you're listening. We know you're buying her great products. She also offers tattoo care and everything too.
Yes,
so
she does.
just a ton of stuff that she does. It's all locally made and everything. So what was that website again?
That is nakedfigsoap.com.
Using code drumming
Drumming
up,
Up.
all one word, for 20% off at checkout.
Hi there, this is Julian of Gorad, and you are listening to Drumming Up Conversation. Hell yeah.
Drumming up conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, drumming up conversation. Drumming up, drumming up, drumming up conversation. Drumming up, drumming up, drumming up conversation. Drumming up, drumming up, drumming up conversation. Yeah!
I will make sure that my sound is coming through. That's another thing I've noticed before is doesn't always default. Seems like it's default. And how do I sound? Does it sound okay?
Sound
Yeah,
fine,
sound
yeah.
good.
Yeah, you
Great.
sound really good.
Okay. Cool. Well, I love the moving pictures vinyl. That's great. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's a good
Yeah, and
start.
behind us is all the lyrics from Moving Pictures as well on both sides.
No
And
way.
then, yeah. It was in the box set that they released a couple years ago for it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Where's YYZ? I don't see it.
There's no lyrics for it.
It's a bad joke. Sorry.
I know. I messed with her actually when I'm like, wait, they're missing one. There's 7 songs on this album. Where are the other lyrics? And she's like, oh yeah, YYZ's missing. I'm like, yeah, there's no lyrics to it. So
Great.
we've
So where do you
definitely
guys live? Where do you guys live at?
we're in Queen Creek, Arizona.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be in Phoenix in like, gosh, at this point, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. There's a
Oh,
meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
So speaking at a meeting, it's actually the Women in Orthodontics meeting.
Oh,
And
cool.
so I'm one of the few men that will be there, but speaking and randomly, I don't do a lot of this, but flying in, flying out. So I'll see about 11 hours of Phoenix,
That's
That's-
all you need to see of Phoenix.
A Phoenix, but you're also coming out a really nice time of year too. So
Yeah.
so you're
Yeah,
lucky.
right on.
Yeah, it's 45 degrees right now, I think here. So yeah.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
it fluctuates. It could be 80 degrees
Yeah.
midday today and then 30 tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't want to be there when it's 110 degrees or 115 or whatever it is. So
No, not at all. So today we are joined by Dr. Kyle Fagala. He's an orthodontist, drummer. You're with the Prog Report, and you also run the Portnoy Forum. And thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate this.
yeah, guys, this is great. This is the first time I've been asked to be on another music podcast, which is funny. I do a lot of podcasting like in the orthodontic world. This is a first. So this is cool. So
Wow.
thank you.
Cool. Oh, of course. This is great. Yeah. So we will start off with the orthodontist stuff, but we'll go away
Yeah,
from
sure.
that afterward. So where is your practice located, and how long have you been an orthodontist for?
Yeah, I suspect the orthodontic stuff is kind of boring to anyone who's watching a drumming podcast, but that's what I do day to day. That's what allows me to indulge in my drumming hobby, But I've been an orthodontist for about 10 years. We started a practice from scratch here in Germantown, Tennessee, which is the first city east of Memphis. It's a suburb. We have another location in Collierville. I say we, it's my wife and I. She's not an orthodontist, but she understood how all the front office stuff worked. So when I got out of residency, we started that together. So it's a cool job. You get to see like, I don't know, at least 100 people every day. It's a lot of different interactions and kind of back and forth. So I'm really good at small talk. And it's a cool job. You get to, over a couple years, create smiles for people, and it's
Yeah.
fun. So it's nothing like drumming, but
No. Do you play prog music in your office?
So I don't.
Okay.
Vic, who's on the Prog Report, he listens to whatever he wants to listen to, and he's a general dentist actually.
Okay.
But no, my playlist is sort of a smattering of kind of 60s to today, and I try to keep it, mixture of stuff.
Okay.
There's a little bit of prog. There's some Rush in there. There's a couple things in there, but there's no like 20-minute epics on my playlist. No.
Well, Rush is variety, so
Right. You can get away with Rush. I don't know that you can get away with like Spock's Beard or something, but
Yeah,
to each their
you
own.
don't know until you try it. So
That's true. That is true. Maybe I'll try it.
And you started playing drums at around 13. What made you decide to play drums?
Yeah, it's funny. Like looking back through these questions, you forget. So I'm almost 40. I turn 40 next year, and 13 now sounds like a long time ago, So, I wish I'd started at 3, like sitting on phone books or whatever, like the stories that really good drummers tell. But I did not grow up in a super musical family. Nobody played an instrument. And it was my brother who was just really into like heavy metal, hard rock, grunge, all that. And he was 7 years older than me. So I kind of inherited all of his musical tastes. And I would usually say for better or for worse, but I think just for better. And so I was, we were doing a Metallica podcast yesterday, ranking the Metallica albums. And I remember, when Black Album came out, I remember going to the record store when Load came out and like listening to it. And like, so all this music I got to experience as a kid. And so I was aware of music and listening to music, but not as an instrumentalist. And for some reason, I think when I was 11 or 12, I got like a cherry red Mexican Strat at like the local music store. And I remember how beautiful it was. I remember the first dent I put into it and was like freaking out, I did that for about a year, I think, self-taught, doing like probably working through some crappy chord book or whatever. And it never really took. And I think like with a lot of instruments, unless you have a purpose for it, it's just hard to like sit in a room. This is before YouTube, obviously. And I just don't know how you got good at an instrument without being in a band. And so I was at school, probably like an 8th grader or something, maybe 7th grader. And there was a group and they're like, hey, we should start a band. I was like, yeah. It's like, I got a guitar. And my good friend Kyle, who we're still good friends with, we just went and saw Metallica and Pantera last month. He was like, well, I've got a guitar. His dad's a really good guitar player, chicken picking guitar player, like country guitar player. And he's like, oh, so guitar is locked out, I guess, And so some other kid was like, yeah, I've got a bass guitar. My dad plays piano. He'll teach me. And another guy was like, well, I sing. And so that left drums. I was like, well, I want to be in the band. And so my brother, he had actually gotten a drum set, the crappiest drum set of all time, at a store called Southern Nights in Paragould. And so I can't even remember the name of the drum set, but just one of those just awful drum kits that wasn't worth, even purchasing. We probably paid way too much for it. But he had that drum kit. And for whatever reason, we kind of brokered a deal like, well, I'm going to be the drummer. So we swapped instruments. And so still to this day, he can play drums. I can play a little guitar, but he's, primarily a guitar player. I'm primarily a drummer. And so in that moment we switched, and then it was just kind of full steam ahead. And so starting that band, and we sucked. I mean, I remember first practice taking my drums to my friend Kyle's house, and like all like on the stands, like taking all the felts and the little metal washer pieces and all that off and putting them in Ziplocs because I didn't know what I was doing. You never take that crap off because you don't know how to put it back in when you're a kid, And so I remember having like my 13-inch tom and my 11-inch tom or whatever it was, and having them reversed because I didn't know any different. I really was like completely ignorant of the whole thing. And I remember the first song we played was AC/DC Back in Black. I remember listening to it 100 times and knowing exactly how many, taps and clicks and all this, and, sucking, but you got to start somewhere. So very long story for how I got into drumming, but I remember it vividly. You remember being so proud of being able to play one song, spending 4 hours on a Saturday to kind of trudge through it, but that's how it gets going.
And back when it was tough to do that because you had to put headphones on, put on your, plug it into your boombox or whatever, and break it down like pretty much measure by measure and go, okay, what was he doing there? And you're trying to figure out what drum or cymbals getting hit. Like, okay, he's hitting this four times here, and then the snare there. And Yeah. Not like now
Yeah.
we can sit down and watch it. So we had it really tough learning, especially drums, because they're
Yeah.
loud too. So you can't just play over them.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly right. Yeah, for sure. I remember that very well. No Rock Band to help out, and certainly no YouTube, so
no,
did the best we could. But honestly, I wouldn't trade it for anything because I
no,
think you learn a lot, you gain a lot from that process.
for sure. Yeah.
Were your parents supportive of your musical choice?
They were, which as a parent now with kids who drum, like I get it. It's a sacrifice. To be honest, I don't mean this in a negative sense, but I think they were probably so ignorant of what it would be like to have a drummer in a house that they wouldn't have even known any different, So my brother would beat the crap out of the drums. I mean, he would hit them harder than anyone I've ever known. Like, so it was brutal on them, but they would let us, they would host band practices, cook for us. I mean, my parents were always very, very, very supportive of that. And so it's cool because now I play at church and they go to that church. And so they get to see me drum every Sunday. Maybe that is a for better or for worse thing, but no, they've always been very supportive.
That's how I started, was in a church
Yeah, there you go.
at 8 or
So,
9 years old. My grandma's, yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, what's weird is I grew up in an a cappella church. So it's a Church of Christ. So no instruments. So that's another like odd thing about this. Like if there had been a church, I think I would have been drawn to it. Like I've always enjoyed being a part of creative processes and that sort of thing. I think I would have been like pulled to that. Whereas in an a cappella church, what did I do? Well, I ran like the slideshow, for the lyrics or whatever, for people to sing along to. But there wasn't that. And so where did you play as a kid growing up in Northeast Arkansas? You played at crappy fairs and stuff. So you could only like have a garage band and play because it had to be secular. It couldn't be like Christian music, which is a bizarre thing, longer conversation for another day. But that's how I got into music. And so it wasn't until in my 30s actually that I started playing in a church setting, which I found to be like really awesome. Like I love it.
It
It's a
is.
whole different energy than playing covers and bars and at fairs and stuff like that. But whatever the case, garage band, fair band, whatever, it stuck.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I was 8 or 9, and I was always just, my grandma was writing because she was the pastor of the church and all that. She'd just be in writing what she's going to do that next Sunday. And I'd just be screwing around on the drums because my dad played drums. And I would
That's
just be
cool.
screwing around on the drums in there that were set up. And I guess she had heard me playing enough that the drummer for the adult band couldn't go that weekend. And she threw me in the ring for it.
Wow.
I'm like, Grandma, I'm 8. I
At
can't reach the
8?
pedal. Yeah. Like
Oh
I had to
man.
stand up. I was Slim Jim Phantom playing because I couldn't sit down and hit the bass drum pedal. So, but I got through
That's
it. I
awesome.
had like half an hour to learn the songs, and I got through it as best as I remember. I wish there was video somewhere for it, because I'd
Oh,
love to
that's sick.
go back and see it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
at 8 I was trying to beat Donkey Kong Country, so you got me beat there. But
But
that's
it's
cool,
one of
man.
those. It's a good learning experience because I learned how to work quickly and learn things quickly, and
Yeah.
I have a different process on, like, someone brings me something new, I'm pretty confident I can knock it out after hearing it once. So,
Yeah.
and that's one of those things you just don't realize that how much of an impact it had until later on in life. Like, oh, that's kind of where that started. That's how I'm quick at learning stuff, or I can pick out
Yep,
things and learn that. So,
for sure.
yeah, you also have an orthodontist band. That's which is really cool because my dad's a realtor and he has a real estate band. So
No
I
way.
yeah,
What's the name of the real estate band? Is it like a
uh,
pun on real estate
Cat
or anything?
escrow.
I mean, I feel like
Yeah,
when you're a professional band, it's a given that some sort of a pun. So we're relapse, which is the
okay,
process by which teeth return to their previous, positions, but also
okay,
relapse in the sense that it's like throwback to like old music or whatever. So,
okay.
but I know like if anyone's still listening to this thing, they're like, oh gosh, we got to talk about an orthodontic band now. I'll be honest, like, I think one story of my life is like really going deep into certain niches. So like musically, it's like progressive rock. Like I love it. And that's a very niche genre. Like there's not just a
Yeah.
ton of fans, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of value in like getting to know that community and getting to know that music. And you start to feel like you kind of know the whole thing. So in orthodontics, pretty small profession. I mean, maybe 12,000 orthodontists nationwide, something like that. And so we're the only all orthodontist band. And so what that means is like when we're at meetings, we get to play these like incredible gigs. So in this calendar year alone, I got to play the House of Blues in
Wow.
Orlando. I got to play on the USS Midway. which, oh, I've noticed that Zoom started doing this. Like when you do a thumbs up, it like does this thing. I was on a podcast
They're
with Mike
very happy that you're the only
yeah.
orthodontist band. That's
Uh,
cool.
yeah, Mike Portnoy was doing this yesterday on the Metallica podcast, and it was like thumbs up, and it was like, anyway, it's kind of funny. So anyway, and there was something he did where it was like fireworks. So I'm trying to get that to happen. But
Cool.
USS Midway, I got to play at the in Chicago, the Wintrust Arena, like where the WNBA team plays. I mean, all these like incredible gigs. Like I worked my butt off in my 20s to try to make it in a band, and nothing like that ever happened. You know, we were excited to play on the same stage as like Gwar or something. You know, like this is like way over my expectation. But it's just because like we've gone deep and deep into this niche, and so we do everything from the 60s through to today. We have a female singer, we have two male singers who can both dance and rap and sing, and so it's sort of like a wedding band, let's say. But we do it to stems, and it's like super duper professional. And when you're an orthodontist, people don't expect much. So like when you show up and you do a cool gig, they're like, oh my gosh, you know. So and I love it. It's great. We only play like 3 or 4 times a year. I mean, it's really hard to get us all together, so it's always at orthodontic meetings. Next year we get to play on a cruise ship for an orthodontic like cruise. I mean, so it's like this. I'm checking off all these bucket list items in this band, you know. So it's pretty cool.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And this week, which this will air a little bit afterward, but this week you released a single
Yeah.
for your upcoming album with your prog band called Echoverse.
Yeah.
So and it was Eleanor Rigby, which that was really, really cool.
Thanks, man.
Your drumming on it was really, really cool. I could hear your influences on it and everything too, but just solid, man. I was like, all right, that's really cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Where did you record that at?
Yeah. So first thing I'll say is like doing a Beatles cover also like as the debut of a band is probably in some sense lame, but the reality is like I auditioned for this band. They were called Asher at the time, and they had one album that came out. It's really good. And it's Kyle Graves, who also was on the Prog Report some, and he goes back. He was an A&R guy for Sony during like late 80s and 90s, did some really cool stuff, worked on platinum albums and random stuff like the Dixie Chicks and, you know, other stuff. But and he's a super cool guy. And we started doing these little covers, a lot of it during COVID. You know, we had nothing else to do. And so we'd cover prog songs, rock songs, whatever, put them out, you know. And so he asked me to audition on the drums. And I was like, you know, the one thing with all the musical stuff I've gotten to do, I've never really been able to be in a true progressive rock band, which is hard to find. And so in this case, it's got a guy in LA, got a guy down in Florida, one in Pittsburgh, me in Memphis. And so it was like, all right, cool. And so I got the gig, auditioning on a song that will be on the debut album. It's a cool song. But we were just sort of talking like, how do you introduce yourself as a new band now? So we renamed as Echoverse, I added a drummer, so on and so forth. And somehow it came up like we should do like a version of Eleanor Rigby that's proggy. And so we're going to call it Eleanor Prog B. You know, that was like the joke. Well, after we finished the track, we're like, I don't know that it's actually progressive enough to call Eleanor Prog B, so we'll just call it Eleanor Rigby. But in terms of how the track was recorded, because we're all remote, I demoed it actually on this drum kit that I'm on right now. This is a Drum Tech drum kit, and they take Sonar drums and then they put electronics into it. So it's a company out of Germany, and so it's just triggered stuff, you know, but it's on a high level. And then I go through my V drums, the Roland like TD50, and then into my computer, and I use Superior Drummer 3 to do sample sounds. And so I have a bunch of different sample packs. And the idea was just that it was going to be for demo purposes, you know, and then I would go into the studio and do the thing. But to be honest, like what happens when you go in the studio oftentimes, you put down the track, the guy then chops it up, he adds some effects to make the snare sound beefier and all that kind of stuff. And on some level, you've kind of accomplished the same thing with a lot more work and effort and cost.
Yeah.
And so I'd been doing these on these covers with just the electronics because who cares? But honestly, after the success of doing that on Eleanor Rigby, I was like, I think I'm just going to do that for the album. And I've played it for people and they can't tell any different. So that I don't know if that's a secret. It's not like we're on some sort of level where that's like something, you know, to be scared of or whatever. But I'll be honest, where the technology is now, because you've got USB powered like snare and ride and hi-hat with so many different voicings, it sounds like a real drum kit. And I'm playing it, you know.
Yeah.
But once it's in MIDI, then you can kind of manipulate it, change the velocities, move stuff, quantize stuff. But, you know, my experience with drumming in a studio is like you're going into, it's basically like an away game, you know, you're in a really like different location. Whereas I'm here at my home. So if I want to record at 10 in the morning, 10 at night, I can. So honestly, I love the flexibility of it. So that's a very long version.
No, you're good.
if you'll listen on Eleanor Rigby, I also did a thing with that track. Like kind of what I was hearing was layering different drum parts. So I've got snare that I'm playing separate from hi-hat that I'm playing separate from toms and kind of layering them on top of each other, which, you talk later about influences, something that
Mhm.
Stuart Copeland did a lot with the Police and
Mhm.
obviously a lot of other drummers have done, but it's cool that you can experiment like that when you're controlling the timeline.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and this is all new for me, like recording drums. I've been a bar drummer. I've not been as much of a recording drummer.
Yeah, I did a lot of recording early on and saw how difficult it can be. Like you said, you're in their home turf
Hmm.
now.
And on their clock.
On their clock, as soon as you walk in, like especially being a drummer, you better hope, because I always asked ahead of time, do you have a kit there already? Because
Hmm.
as soon as you walk in through that door, the time you're on the clock. So
Yeah.
setting up your drums is 200, $300. Just set them up because that's the first hour.
Yeah.
And so I get that because like the last full album we did, we recorded at my home studio, and then this one we're all kind of doing separately. But I'm still recording at my home studio here because it's just like it just makes more sense. I
Yeah.
can play it whenever I want. I can do it on my own terms. If I screw up, I'm like, oh crap, there's another hour now. I just start it over and play
Well,
it again. So
the other worst thing about being a drummer is you have to go first and then you don't get to change
yeah,
it later. You're sort of like
yeah,
locked in.
yeah,
And so of course, as a remote band, you're not able to like jam this stuff out in a room and really forge it and form it. You're having to do that a step at a time,
yeah,
which that is the norm for bands. I mean, you're talking about Rush behind you. I mean, they were doing that, on their last several albums where they were
yeah.
remote and writing it together and things would change as you sent it back and forth. And
Mhm.
obviously, if you're Rush, like cost and whatever is no concern, and you have a home studio with a 45-piece drum kit that's all mic'd properly, and you have a sound
Yeah,
engineer who comes over, whatever. I don't really have that, so
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
I've considered it, but honestly, like the success I've had with these, I
Mhm.
like the flexibility of it. So that's what I'm going to kind of do for the debut album, and we're going to see how it turns
Nice.
out. So
Very cool.
Very cool.
just I won't lead
It's
with that. People think it's lame to use digital, but I don't know.
Hey,
Coming
whatever
around to it.
works. Yeah.
Yeah.
a couple of years back, during COVID,
Mhm.
Justin laid down some drum tracks to Eleanor Rigby, and
No
it was really,
way.
really cool. But we're at the same time, we're like, we can't really have anyone listen to this because we don't want to get sued by the Beatles.
Because it
So
was to their track. Because there's no drums in
Yeah.
Eleanor Rigby. People don't realize that.
yeah,
So I was like, oh, I'm gonna add some like heavy metal drums to it, and it sounded really
cool.
cool. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to find other guys to do the music for it because I can't just release my drums
On
to
their
Eleanor
track,
Rigby
yeah.
because I can't afford the lawsuit for that one. So
Yeah, I don't blame you there, man. It was funny. We got mostly positive comments, but I got one guy commenting that said it had too much drum presence compared to the original. I was like, you don't say.
I would think so
Yeah.
because there was no drum presence
Yeah,
in
I
the
was dead in the water the first stroke. So
original.
anyway,
Wow, that's a very ignorant comment for sure.
yeah, it's all good. He meant well, I'm sure. So
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure. So when did you become a fan of Mike Portnoy?
yeah, so I think, my history with like music and drummers and all that pretty much starts like from like who did I idolize first with Lars from Metallica. And so I had a massive Metallica phase, which again we recorded yesterday, like this Metallica. Well, I don't want to give anything away. I don't know that it really matters, but like a ranking of Metallica albums, let's say.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's
you've done it with
yeah.
what, Rush,
Yeah,
Dream
we did
Theater.
Rush, Dream Theater. We've done
Yeah,
Opeth. I wasn't on that
okay, that
one.
was cool.
Some
Because
other ones coming up.
yeah,
So Roy, don't be mad at me if I'm giving away anything, but we kind of talk about it. Obviously, Metallica is not a prog group, so we're going to do a wheel of rock. Okay.
okay,
And so that opens up a lot of different options. And because it's tough to do anything that doesn't have, more than 10 albums. A lot of bands, like people are
yeah,
like do Riverside, but they got like 8 albums. It's kind of hard to like do a wheel with that. So Metallica, depending on how you count it, has 12, 13, 14. So that was fun. But they were the first band that like I knew every fill, I knew every hit, I knew every song. Like that was my band. And so out of Metallica, because you reach a point if you're progressing in the drums where it kind of runs out a little bit, like from a technical standpoint. Still a great band, still love that band. But the next step, really, like maybe there's some Dave Matthews and some other stuff kind of floating in and out of there with some, more technical drumming and stuff. But it was really Dream Theater. It was my friend Kyle who discovered Metropolis Part Two, Scenes from a Memory, and I remember him literally. It's such a dated memory, but calling me on the landline and being like, "Hey man, you got to hear this." It's like that scene from Back to the Future, you know? um, anyway, so he's like, "Listen to this." And I remember hearing probably 1928 Overture
Okay.
and being like, "Oh my gosh, what is that?" You know, these were all very new sounds to us. And of course, this was their fourth album. They'd been around for long enough, but I didn't know who they were as a kid, Northeast Arkansas. You go to Hastings, which is our music store, they didn't have Dream Theater there, you know? So, but anyway, somehow he managed to find it. I think he probably burnt me a tape or let me borrow it. And I actually remember listening to it for the first time, putting the CD in my little Discman on a school bus headed to like a track meet or something. And I remember listening, you know, first song, Regression comes in, and it's the guy talking, which
Yeah.
now I recognize as sort of a throwback to like Queensryche or something like, but I didn't have that reference point, you know? And so just going through the whole album and like being blown away, you know? So from that moment, then it was working back through their discography. I think I went to Awake next. I remember 6 o'clock comes in. I was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what is all that? You know, I didn't know what an octobon was, you know, and then becoming the biggest fan in the world of Mike Portnoy, and then following their career. And to be honest, kind of like losing touch of that band at a certain point, you know, maybe the last couple albums in Dream Theater. And then actually, I think you were going to ask about this, but like when he left Dream Theater, I'll just jump ahead and answer
Yeah,
this.
you're good. You're good.
I was kind of over that band a little bit,
Oh,
to be honest.
okay.
You know, I think in hindsight, like the albums were better than I was giving them credit, but I was sort of like tired of it. And what's funny is I think Mike kind of was too. I think he needed to kind of
Yeah.
stretch his creative legs a little bit. And so I was actually really into Avenged Sevenfold at the time, and I was really into Nightmare, and it's like my favorite album by them. But I saw them a couple times before
Mine
Mike
too.
joined them in. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I
Nightmare is
really
a
like them.
masterpiece. Yeah.
Yeah, it's their best album, but I also
Yeah.
really liked the album or two before. I didn't love the early metalcore stuff personally as much.
Yeah, same.
And then I've liked a couple of their albums, which you were asking me like music you should listen to. Their new album's fantastic. I love it, you know? So I was actually excited to see him stay with Avenged. And so when he left Dream Theater, I was like, good, great. We'll go on and do the next thing. And then he was out of Avenged, and it was like, oh shoot, what happens now?
Yeah.
You know? And so it was kind of this emotional roller coaster, but I was with Mike the whole time, and I really like didn't listen to Dream Theater a ton like before he left the band, and certainly after he left the band. I mean, I barely listened to any of this stuff with Mangini on it.
I didn't either. I don't know. I it was tough for me. So I was devastated when he left. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do with myself because that was like other than Rush, that was my band.
Yeah. How old were you?
When he left?
Yeah.
30? No,
Okay.
29. This is 2011. So,
Wait,
yeah.
so how old are you now?
I'm 42.
Okay, so I'm 39. So we're about the same age.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
my friend Daniel, who's from Brazil, he's on the Prog Report some. He was
Okay.
like, I think like
I know Dan,
13
yeah.
or 14, and he was like, next to my parents' divorce, it was like the most emotional thing ever, you know?
Yeah.
So I didn't feel it as that because I was so excited that he was like heading on to the next thing. Of course, you know, a few years later, it's like, shoot, I kind of wish he was in Dream Theater now, you know? So
Yeah. Yeah, because the very limited stuff I heard with Mangini, I was just like, they don't sound like Dream Theater anymore. They're too technical. They're sounding like they're trying to be something they're not.
yeah.
And then I was like, well, they kind of took their heartbeat away, you know, and that was kind of my opinion, you know, he was a founding member. He was one that named the band or his dad did, but you know, it's
Yeah.
such one
Sure.
of those. And yeah, so I was devastated when he left, but
Sure.
because you know, especially that since we've been together, she's never seen them live.
Oh man.
Seen Sons of Apollo.
Sons of Apollo was
And Adrenaline.
an Adrenaline Mob with
Okay.
yeah.
With Russell
yeah,
Allen and all
never-
that. Yeah.
Yeah, she's never seen Dream Theater, so we're really excited now with what happened. So
Yeah.
when did you start running the Mike Portnoy Forum?
So I had to look it up. It's July of 2016.
Okay.
So it's actually longer than I thought, and it's at like I think 11,000 members now. And I started it with a couple guys, and that's sort of shifted around a little bit. Now there's a group of four of us. So it's Jeff Bailey, Daniel Levy, and John Fiala, and they all appear on Prog Report here and there. John's an enormous Rush fan, for what that's worth.
Okay, cool.
But you know, it's not like it's a ton of work. I mean, there were years where I kind of leaned into it more. But what's interesting is like all those years was, you know, of course, when he was not in Dream Theater. And so the majority, you know, the bulk majority of his fandom is Dream Theater related. And so it's interesting, like part of the job of the group is to try to like get people excited about his other projects, which, you know, now he's back in Dream Theater. So it's almost like, no, you really need to go back. You need to listen to like Flying Colors and, you know, some of this other stuff.
Sure.
But we started it because he shut down his online forum, his like website forum, which was always
Okay.
such a big deal. And a
Mhm.
lot of that was just some of the negativity and toxicity around the Dream Theater fans,
Yeah.
and I think obviously, Mike would speak to this now and has spoken to this, but who he was when he left Dream Theater, with the Avenged stuff and all that, very different person than who he is now. He was in his early 40s,
Mhm.
just like you and me. And
Yeah.
now he's like in his mid 50s. So it's a very different story. And so I think it's probably been healthy for him in as much as it's been difficult, and so I think for them to have gone through an effective divorce and now be getting kind of remarried, that's going to just be fascinating.
Yeah.
But it's been cool, like doing that group and kind of getting to know Mike through the process of doing that.
Mhm.
Um, and in a lot of ways, it's made me a bigger fan because I've had to like know that stuff better,
Yeah.
you know.
Sure. And
But
do
it's not
you
a hard task because I love the music. And what's interesting, I
sure.
only saw Dream Theater once in concert,
Mhm.
and I never saw him with Mangini. So I've seen Mike probably 50 times, but once with
Mhm.
Dream Theater, which is wild.
Wow.
I've
Yeah,
seen it. Yeah, I think at 11 with Dream Theater
good
was
for you, man.
yeah, yeah. They came out here like a lot
Yeah.
when they were
Well,
touring.
that's the
So
thing. They don't come to Memphis. Like that is not a thing. Progressive rock does not come here. Steve Hackett is coming in March. So I'm gonna go see Steve Hackett. I've never seen him, but that's like about it. I mean, we don't get a lot. Avenged Sevenfold came once, which is not prog, but like, I mean, we have to soak up the scraps that get thrown to you,
mhm,
So it's
for sure.
maybe Dream Theater. Okay, actually, Dream Theater did come with Mangini to Graceland of all places,
Oh,
and I was
wow.
out of town. It was like I think it was actually in Phoenix. Turns out, but anyway.
Okay.
Bad timing, right?
Bad timing. Help, especially if it was during the summer and you're out here.
Yeah,
So
right on. Yeah, sure.
and did you know Portnoy prior to the forum?
Kind of yes and no. And
Okay.
I think the first time I talked to him was actually 2014 on the Progressive Nation at Sea Cruise, which for like the Prague Report, for a lot of these friends, for like what led into Morse Fest, because Morse Fest, the first one happened then later that year.
Mhm.
That was sort of like the kicking off of all this stuff. And so if you look back, like the bands on Progressive Nation at Sea, like it's basically like all the major like progressive rock bands that are still going on today. Like Haken was on it, and of course he had like Flower Kings, and he had Pain of Salvation, he had Transatlantic. He had his project that he did. Oh gosh, I shouldn't have tried to like think of what it was. The one he played drums on with Damon. Whatever that is, someone out there knows what I'm talking about. But it was an incredible cruise. He also had like Periphery, and it was just awesome. Like the line of Animals as Leaders were on there. Like you look back, you're like, my gosh, this was on one cruise. I can't believe
Yeah.
it. Um, and so that was like I talked to him like a couple times, and that was on a level like you show up and you don't know what to expect, and you're sitting
Mhm.
at the bar and like Adrian Belew is sitting there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like this guy's huge, in King Crimson and all this kind of stuff. It's like, I can't
Yeah.
believe he's here. And you like talk to him for an hour or whatever. It was like Billy Sheehan and Derek Sherinian are at the bar, like sitting together. Like, this is amazing. And
Yeah.
so I think Mike, I talked to him like a handful of times, but then it was through the Morse Fest events where I kind of started to get to know him. But Mike is also like, I think rightfully like a little standoffish with fans because fans can be weird. And, he's gone through the thing where the guy was like, pretending to be him and was showing up at bars and I think
Mhm.
like
Yeah, 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 I
robbing
remember
people
that.
or whatever,
Yep.
and so
Yep.
he's
Yep.
got the song Never Enough that he wrote about fans and how no matter what he did, it was never enough and so on. So Mike, again, in a way that I respect, is kind of standoffish with fans. But over the years, I'd say we've become friends and, certainly we know each other and been able to help him obviously with the forum and that sort of thing. And then the drumstick collection and then the
Mhm.
drum kit, some of those other things we're going to talk about. Like, at
Yeah.
this point, we know each other well. But I'm also not someone that's just going to be like ringing up Mike and being like, "Hey, man, what's up?" It's just, he's Mike, and
Yeah.
I'm just an orthodontist who plays drums. But
Yeah.
he's a really cool and really good guy, and it sounds kind of silly, but like he inspires me like in my career. Like obviously, like, I'm a huge fan of his drumming and the music, and really I like just about everything that he has done and does, but it's really his work ethic and his creative drive and just the way that he's wired. Like I'm similarly like obsessive about details and stuff like that, and any project I'm in, I'm the driver of it. And so I think I see a lot of commonality there that's been inspirational to me, like even in my career outside of drumming. So
Yeah, because you look at a lot of the albums that when he was with Dream Theater, always said, produced by John Petrucci and Mike Portnoy, or Mike Portnoy, and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So yeah, I'm the same way. If it's not, if I don't do it, it's not going to get done, kind of thing. So I get that. And he was really cool to us when we met him. We actually had dinner with them
Oh,
at the
cool.
Rainbow in LA, when he was with
Nice.
Adrenaline Mob. So,
That's
and they were
awesome,
really,
man.
really cool. Yeah. So we were down there the whole afternoon and everything, and had dinner over the Rainbow and everything. It was really cool. And then since we brought it up, and I'll bring it up in a second, but
Yeah.
the uh
Sweet.
the Adrenaline Mob stick that he handed me at the show. So
That's
And it
cool,
was
man.
funny because we did some pictures with him outside the venue really early in the day when we caught him outside. And then during the show, Justin made eye contact with him. He's like, "Hey, I want one of your sticks." And so after the show, he came up and personally handed it to him.
mhm.
It's
But
cool.
then the next day we went home and Justin put it on the counter and took a picture of it to post on Facebook. "Hey, Mike Portnoy gave me the stick." Well, we happened to have like 68 cents in change right next to it. And all Justin put was, "Mike Portnoy gave me this at the show last night." And someone was like, "Why did he give you 68 cents?"
What a guy,
Yeah.
Oh my
he's
God.
looking
Here's a
out for you.
stick and
So
some
Here's some
change.
loose change I don't want to carry back on the road
that
with me. So
that
yeah,
is
I was like,
cool.
all right. That was my lead singer that did that. I'm like, ah, ha, ha, funny, funny, funny.
Yeah,
Like, all right, note to self: next time, don't have anything around what you take a picture of.
But now
that's
you
cool.
have a huge stick collection, correct?
Yeah, so I think it's at 52 sticks right now. And so I've got it all like cataloged. Again, I kind of alluded to it. I'm like a little OCD about certain things.
You're fine.
And that only started like a few years ago. I mean, trying to think of, I think the first stick that I got was actually a Winery Dog stick, 2014. The only show that Mike had played in Arkansas at the time was Little Rock, Little Club, first Winery Dogs tour, and they were electric. I mean, it was really, it's a top 5 concert, which is saying something. I love concerts, and they're so loud, and it's just great. You catch a band at kind of the right time.
Yeah.
And I've seen them on every other tour, but this was definitely their best. Um, yeah, man. And so it was actually my brother bought it for me at the merch table, and it's a hot rod stick, so it's the Pro
Okay.
Mark thing,
Mhm.
and that he plays on Regret, I think, and maybe on a couple other things. But anyway, so I've got that stick, and it's hanging out over there on the wall. But of the other 52, it's I would venture to say that Mike has more unique signature sticks than any other drummer on earth.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
don't think there's any really comparison or anyone that comes close to that. And that's because he's an OCD collector too. I mean, he gets what excites people, switching up songs on the set list, doing Master of Puppets, in 2002 in Chicago, like that kind of stuff. Like for people like me and probably like you, it's like, that's so cool. I wish I'd been there,
Yeah.
And so the
Yeah.
same thing with the sticks. But what's interesting is like when you go, and I did a video on Prog Report where we like monotonously like walk through each stick after each
Yeah.
stick. So
Yeah.
if you're really crazy, go watch that. But I have the list, and it's cool. And there was a website at one point that kind of had some of that. I can't find it any longer, and so it's like, how do you find out how many sticks he even had? So it's been a lot of work to sort of find. And then there's been sticks that like I didn't know that existed. And so what started that was that Mike was kind of cleaning out his closet. I think they were maybe going to move or something, so he's trying to like clear out some space because he's got a lot of crap in his house. If you've ever seen pictures of
Oh
all
yeah.
his
Yeah. Yeah.
vinyl and DVDs and all that stuff,
I
and so
watched
he
all of
started.
his videos on all that stuff.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty awesome, So anyway, he started selling these sticks, and so I was like, I'll start collecting them all. So you just kind of go one at a time. And there was a point where to fill out the collection, Mike helped and sent some like unique sticks that I don't think you could find otherwise, and lots of buying on eBay and lots of finding them here and there. And then some of them, that he either handed to me or that I got at shows or stuff like that. And so the most recent one, for whatever it's worth, is this red Winery Dog stick.
Oh, that's
Cool.
cool.
So, and some of them are
Um,
signed, some of them have, been stage played and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But well, I'll talk about this maybe with the drum set. Well, I'll talk about it right now, but also just
Okay.
random stuff like this was,
Oh, cool. Falling into
I-
infinity.
yeah. So from the Falling to Infinity tour, this was in one of the road cases that,
Nice.
when I bought his drum kit, it was just in there. I was like, holy crap. And I think that was actually his like drink stand for that tour. Like that
That
he
makes
put
sense.
next, I don't know for sure, but anyway, it's just this random, piece of memorabilia. So
Cool. That's really, really cool.
yeah.
Yeah. And how did you acquire the Green Monster kit?
Yeah, so it never went on public sale. He sold his Awake kit publicly, and I think he sold, I want to say it's like his Siamese monster. He sold one of the kits there from
The
like the
purple
mid
one,
2000s.
maybe even the purple
No,
monster.
I wish
No?
he'd sold the purple one. That's the one I inquired about. That's the one that
Yeah.
I wanted. And he's like, it's not for sale. And so I actually went through Backstage Auctions. There's a guy there who runs that, and he's been the one that's organized a lot of this. And I think rightfully so too. Like I wouldn't approach Mike directly, so I
Yeah.
kind of went through it. I don't want to put him in a weird spot.
Yeah.
And so we kind of established what's like a fair cost, and the guy brokered it. And then sure enough, shipped 3 huge green road cases. And
Wow.
so the green monster, which is behind me,
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
it was it's a beautiful kit. Now, one of
Yeah.
the purple one, because like the kind of like most
The most
quintessential
seen.
kit, the
Yeah.
most seen kit probably. And for
Yeah.
me, like when I got into the band and having live scenes in New York and all that kind of stuff, that was the moment that I most worshipped to that band, if you want to say it like that, was the Purple Monster, right? So that was on that tour. He had that from Falling in Infinity on through the Scenes tour, and then he switched for the album that came after. Goodness gracious, that's
Train of
pathetic.
thought.
No, before Train of
No,
Thought,
no.
6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. I don't know why I
Yeah,
couldn't think of that.
see,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then he would switch it on each tour, I'm pretty sure. So
Mhm.
at the time he had the Purple Monster for the US tour, then he had the Green Monster for the European tour, and then he actually had a Red Monster for the Asian tour. You sound like
Yeah.
you know this. It's great.
Yes.
So the Green Monster has been in storage for 20 years, ever since he came off that tour cycle. And so they pulled him out to check and sent him over, and I've set them up just as they were. They were kind of labeled so I could put them together. It was like sort of like an adult Lego. And they still sound great. Same heads, and he even sent me some cymbals from his Dream Theater days. Some of them are cracked, but they still sound good. And I bought some on eBay to kind of fill it out, weird details, and trying to find from the time,
Yeah.
like in Modern Drummer, like what cymbals was he using and all that kind of stuff. And so it's cool. I wanted a prog kit, and what better way to get a prog kit than
Yeah.
get one from Mike, So
Yeah, that's really, 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 really cool. Do you have any other drums or instruments in your collection?
oh yeah.
Cool.
Nothing like that. My wife
Uh,
would kill me, but you can kind of see in this room. Well, I don't know if you can see it, but you can kind of see some snare drums over there.
okay.
And I've got like my main kit that I'll use for gigs, which I don't gig as much as I used to. And if I'm doing like the orthodontic thing, we'll usually rent a kit because we're in different cities and stuff. But that's an A&F kit. So it's a group out of Austin that does handmade drums, and they look like field drums. So it's like a whiskey maple kit. So it almost looks like something that like the band would have played in like the mid 60s or something, like
Okay.
very different. A 24-inch, like marching drum sized kick drum, and just a single tom. I do have a couple octobons because I can't get away from that. So, but definitely a more pared down kit. And then I've got this electronic kit. But no, my wife is going to leave me if I get another. The only other kit I would buy would be like a Beatles kit because I'm a huge Beatles nerd.
Nice.
But
Same there. Yeah.
maybe one day. I don't know if it'd be a real one because those things are
No,
insanely,
you can't get the
insanely
oyster one
expensive.
very easily. Yeah.
No, yeah, the one that Ringo actually played, that like famous kit that then Paul ended up with and recorded
Mhm.
like, McCartney on, and that went for a couple $1 million or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's insane. Yeah.
maybe in another life.
How many snare drums do you have?
Oh, like 10.
Oh.
Which, there's some drummers that have like 50. Like Todd Sucherman, Styx drummer, he's one of my favorites. That guy's got like 100. But I think the reality is like I try to piece together enough with the thought that I would record with them. The reality is I have the one, it's a Noble and Cooley snare that I just love. It's a 14x7. It's
Nice.
it's got a great crack. Like I love it. I
Mhm.
use that one all the time,
Yeah.
and I have a side snare that's a deeper DW, and you don't switch them out as much as you might think. At least I don't.
Yeah. No, I have a Vinnie Paul 14x8, and I'm like, this pretty much does everything I need it
That's
to
a
do.
sick drum. I love that. I
It
got to
is.
meet Vinny.
We did too. Yeah.
Oh, you did? He's a
Yeah.
nice guy.
Oh,
Um,
Actually, Chad Gray used to live across the street from us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I met him at a Fry's. It's a grocery store out here, and
Yeah.
I met him just there.
he was at the
He's
pharmacy.
at the pharmacy, and I was like, I have a hell yeah tattoo on me, and I showed him the tattoo. He's like, wait, come back. We talked for like an hour and a half.
Oh,
just
no way.
about whatever. Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
like,
I did not
don't
talk
meet
to
your
Vinny
heroes.
for that.
I'm like, screw that. I'm meeting my heroes all the time because I've always had good luck meeting them. So
That's great, man. Yeah, Vinny Paul was outside of McDonald's, and he was headed to Vegas, and this was probably about 9 months before he passed. I mean, it was not, and my son, who's now a drummer, there's a hilarious photo. It's me, Vinnie Paul. He's like going like that, and my son's like, "Who is this guy?" So, but man, I love Pantera. So
For sure. Yeah, Vinny was a game changer what he did. So
absolutely,
he might be one of the most underrated drummers there are, because like,
I agree.
compared to like Lars, where he's very well known, Vinny wasn't. And it's like Vinny was just his drum sound, they're still using that today for the drum
Mhm.
sound. Like what he was doing, putting the quarters on the drum heads and everything else he
Yep.
was doing. It's like
Well,
it's crazy.
interesting fun fact about that, and you're exactly right. Mike's kick drum head, it has the Damar patches that
Okay.
is conceptually the same thing as the quarters on the
Mhm.
the batter head. I mean, it
Yeah.
gives it that that attack on the
Mhm.
kick, and so I mean that sound inspired Mike, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to me, that's the best drum of the early '90s metal scene is Vinny, and
Oh yeah.
he's the most technically gifted drummer. I mean,
Mhm.
he's extremely tight, and he's got his rudimental background. And yeah, we were listening to them heading into the Metallica show. And I'll be honest, I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but I don't love the pick for Pantera on the drums because I just
Mhm.
don't think he matches Vinny. But it's another story for another day. I was
Yeah.
disappointed in the concert. It just wasn't quite on the level, but oh
Yeah.
well.
Well, and I never saw Pantera, so
I wish,
I won't
man.
see. I will probably won't see this, just because it's like I would want, if I had seen the original lineup, really wasn't, but the
Yeah.
original lineup,
Yeah.
because Phil had just joined them, when
Yeah.
the original. Anyway, I digress. Again, another thing for another show, because they had 3 albums before he even joined. But
Call it the
um,
quintessential lineup or, whatever.
yes,
The
the classic
essential lineup.
lineup,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but it was like if I had seen them, I'd probably be okay seeing this. But it's like I don't want this to be my only Pantera show,
Yeah.
you know.
I will
So
give him this. Phil, not even like I have to discount it, but he sounds great.
mhm.
He's doing a good job. Now I don't know what it looks like on videos and so on, but he's doing a great job. And Zach Wild does the best he can do,
Yeah,
but he's not dime. And then
yeah,
the drums just didn't hit it. And then Rex is doing Rex, and Rex is great. I mean,
for
so
sure.
it was cool to see it. It's the best thing we're gonna get.
Yeah,
But I wasn't just blown away.
yeah.
Oh
That's
well.
what I've heard. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard there just didn't. If you close your eyes, it didn't sound like Pantera, and you need to be able to close your eyes, and it sounds like if they don't visually look like him, you should be able to close your eyes, and
So
it sounds like him.
what I
Yeah.
would say, and I'm a drum guy, but the
Mhm.
guitar, I want to be at a Pantera show and I want the guitar to hurt me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the guitar did not hurt me. And the
Mhm.
drums, like when I think of like closing my eyes at a Pantera show and thinking about Vinny, I want that kick drum to like blow my chest out. And
Exactly.
it didn't do that. And those are limitations of being in a stadium, being on the ground. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'm like holding him too high a standard, but I will say close my eyes and like Phil sounded awesome. He can still
Yeah.
scream, he can still do his thing. He's got that stage, that interesting kind of like he looks like he's going to go off and kill somebody stage presence.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that still worked, but I give it a B minus.
Yeah. For
Anyway.
sure. Sure. So your reaction when Portnoy returned?
Yeah. Yeah, so my reaction to that was a lot different than my reaction to him leaving. Like when he left, I felt like I was kind of like emotionally on the same place
Yeah.
with him. It's like he can do better. It's like you're getting that divorce, but you can do better. She doesn't know what she's losing. With him coming back though, it was like this is awesome. This is great. Like the
Yeah.
timing was perfect. So I think he had been able to spread his wings, do all the stuff that he wanted to do, and a lot of that stuff was kind of running out. Like I love Flying Colors, but like Casey's got his situation with his daughter, and that band's kind of coming to an end. Transatlantic is effectively seems to be coming to an end. And, Neil Morse band is awesome. I love that group, but it felt like it had kind of gone through its cycle a little bit, and it'll come back, I think. But, and, even Neil Morse on his solo stuff has started using other drummers here and there. And so
So I
it's
was
sort
gonna
of like,
say, yeah.
what's Mike going to do? And so Dream Theater. You asked us on here, did I know? And to be honest, not exactly. I mean,
Okay.
I'd had enough conversations to know that it was looking likely. And,
With Liquid Tension and the Petrucci solo thing,
yeah,
it's kind of like what's okay. Well, they're kind of because it started out Dream Theater, then John Petrucci solo, then Liquid Tension with Dream Theater. So now it's kind of going backwards. I
yep,
was like, okay, we're leading
that's
into
funny.
Dream Theater now. If it's yeah. you look at it that way, it's kind of,
Yeah,
well,
no, I mean, like, so all the little like necessary dominoes had starting to fall, and the last one was James. I mean, anyone who knew the band and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of knew that he and James were a little bit estranged. You know, he was going to Christmas parties with John, both Johns who like live close to him still, and the wives are friends. You
Yeah, they're
know,
all the same from the same band.
and the
So
daughters are friends. You know, all this kind of stuff.
yeah,
So it was sort of a matter of time, and really I think James is the last domino. But then even all that aside, like just because it's conceptually possible doesn't mean that they would do it. Like, you know, does Mangini want to like get out of the band? How's that going to work? What's the business consideration? And so I think as the last couple albums they did on the tours, fewer and fewer tickets were selling and stuff like that. I think, you know, at some point it's a business decision as much as it is like a we need to do this for the fans kind of decision. So I think musically they kind of reached the end of the road. So again, timing's great. I think what Mike would have said in any conversation where I would ask him is, you know, it feels like it'll happen, but who knows? You know, I mean, I don't know that he did know until they officially were like, let's do this thing. So
yeah, yeah. Because I listen to Eddie Trunk pretty much daily, and he said that Eddie Trunk, as soon as he got off air, Mike sent him a text, "Hey, call me when you can." And he's like, he said, "Yeah, I'm going back to Dream Theater." He's like, "Oh man, I just got off air. I would have said something." He goes, "No, that's why I
no,
waited until you're off air. You can't say anything till tomorrow
yeah.
morning."
Yeah, and one
So
thing about Mike is he's very secretive about announcements and stuff like that. So there's a couple people who knew, you know, people that work at the label or stuff like that, but they were like sworn to secrecy. And I respect that. So it was
me too.
fun. Like I did like someone told me like, hey, check your Facebook at 9. And I was like, what? And I even jokingly said, like, is Mike getting back with Dream Theater or something? No response, you know. So when I saw it, I was honestly shocked. Like
Yeah,
as much as I expected, as much as everything was there, as much as I'm following all this stuff, it's like a soap opera. Like I know all the characters, I know what should happen. I didn't think it would happen until it actually happened. And the image they released, no offense to anybody, but it was so poorly photoshopped that I thought it was fake. Like there for a second, I was like, "Is
yeah.
this real?" You know?
That's me
So
too. Yeah. So I went to a couple of the like main sources to make sure because I thought the same thing. This looks fan made. Like anyone,
yeah,
they've been saying this for a decade now. Like anyone could be doing this. I'm like, oh no, it's on the Dream
this
Theater
is
website. Okay, like
yeah,
we're good.
this
Holy
is
crap. Yeah,
legit. Yeah. So
it
no, I'm
is.
excited. I mean, and more than anything, this sounds kind of like I don't know, but like it's true. I'm excited for him and his family. Like there's a certain like emotional weight that I think has hung over him that is now released, and you can sense it in his energy. Like being on
Mhm.
that podcast with him yesterday, like I can tell how excited he is when he talks about it, which is great. You know, like I'm excited to go to the shows and so on, but like I'm just excited for him. It's just good to see things kind of come back together.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's cool that he does the rankings every once in a while because
Yeah.
those are always fun. Because the
He
last
loves
one,
that stuff. I
yeah,
mean, he's a
I
fan
know he does.
first, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Like
for sure.
and if I, you know, it's not gonna happen, it's not in the cards for me, but like if I became like some, you know, big musician or whatever, like I would still love doing stuff like that. I love the competitive, like, and I love just ranking stuff. Again, it's the OCD in me. Like I love putting things in order, you know? So
For sure. Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, because I was watching the Dream Theater. I'm like, I wouldn't put that there. I wouldn't put that there and stuff like that. I was like, man, it'd be fun
yeah,
to be on.
sorry I like falling into infinity. So
Oh,
that
you're good. My favorite,
offended a lot of
honestly,
people.
besides images and words, is Train of Thought. I like the heavy
Yeah,
side of it. I just
yeah,
love that album because
yeah.
it was so not them, but it was too. You
Mhm.
know, and it was kind of showing
You're
where they
not
were going.
alone.
Yeah.
You and Vic, he's our resident metalhead. So, and that's actually not one of my favorites. So you know, it's funny. It's like what
Yeah.
speaks to different people. I found the Metallica one when that comes out.
Mhm.
I'm on an island on a couple albums, and I don't understand it. I don't understand how you couldn't like these albums, but it's just the way it
Yeah.
is. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that aspect. I think Injustice for All is a very prog album though too. So it can fall into what you guys are doing, but
it's yeah, you know, kind of sort of not really. You know, it's one of those things is like, what is prog? I used to advocate, it's funny for Avenged Sevenfold, and now they've actually, in my opinion, made a prog album.
yeah.
I think their most recent is a prog album. But I used to advocate for like, well, in this song, this is like pretty progressive, you know, and
Mhm.
you know, I think there's even aspects of Nightmare that have some progressive moments. But you know, and Justice for All is always the one that's like kind of called like that's as progressive as Metallica got. And there's a
Yeah.
couple songs there that are truly, I'd say, progressive metal. But then what do they do next? The Black Album. You know, it's
Black
like the
Album. The
least
most
progressive thing
basic,
ever.
straight up, AC/DC
Yeah.
style. Yeah.
Which I love. You know, I don't
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
everything to be progressive, you know. So that
No,
was what I
no.
found on that podcast is well, some of their fans do need everything to be thrash or complicated and you know, anyway.
Yeah. 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 I like, yeah. not my whole playlist isn't all progressive stuff. I have all kinds of crazy
Sure.
stuff on my
Yep.
playlist. So yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Same.
So how did you meet Roy of the Prog Report?
Yeah. So all these guys, we didn't know it obviously at the time, but we were on Progressive Nation at Sea. And because of that, Roy started the Prog Report. I think he wrote a book around the same time on like modern progressive rock, but like that was really again the impetus for all this stuff. And then I met him through Morse Fest and stuff like that. And eventually he like had me come on the podcast or maybe had me write something. He's been doing that for 10 years. I think I've only been on it for probably 6 or 7.
Okay.
But at this stage, I mean, I probably do as much as maybe 2 or 3 of the other guys that are on it. So I take every opportunity I can get because I really love it. And what it's forced me to do, sort of like running the Portnoy Forum, is I've got to know my stuff about, progressive rock that's coming out.
Yeah.
And I don't know how like a metalhead or a guy that's into punk or hardcore or like whatever other genre that's like 17 times as big keeps up with stuff. Because I can barely keep up with progressive rock. And I mean, we did a year-end thing that'll come out in a little bit. 24 different albums that we talked about, and they're all good. It's like that's like a full-time job keeping up with all these albums. So but Roy's
Especially with how
great.
much, yeah, especially with how much can come out. Like it just anyone can put anything out. It's like, man, you might miss 5 or 10 of them. They're like, oh man, I didn't even see this when I was searching. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's
for me
insane.
this year and last year is all the releases from the music that was conceptualized during COVID when everyone had time. So I think there's
Mhm.
a lot of great music just because there was the ability to like first, we've taken this for granted. And then second, like, what do we want to do that's really cool? And a lot of remote stuff opened up because people were having to do it that way.
Yeah.
And so I think, most of the music now is like homebrewed and it's worked on remotely. And I think that actually makes for better music
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of the time.
A lot of the time. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Sure.
So
Maybe
what are
sometimes more sterile, but, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I agree.
what are 3 bands or albums in the prog genre that listeners should check out?
Yeah, I love this question because I'm just going to take it for this year. Well, let me start with bands like if people don't listen to prog and they're still listening to this, um, the big ones for me is, I mean, surely Dream Theater. I think Spock's Beard. And then I'll pick one that I really like from Mike is Flying Colors. I find a lot of people haven't listened to that. And that may not be your thing. It depends on what you like. But for me, like those would be like the 3 big ones. I think also Neil Morris has some incredible solo albums and so on. This year, though, which is like a little bit easier, my top 3 albums have been Avenged Sevenfold, Life is But a Dream. I love that. It's like my favorite album of the year. It's the one I've listened to the most. Moon Safari's new album is great. Certainly if you like Styx, it feels very much kind of in line with that. Incredible vocal harmonies. They're awesome. And then the next one is I gotta look it up. I saved this because I was like, I know I won't remember. It is Advent Horizon. You need to
Okay.
check that band
Sounds
out.
familiar. Okay.
They're great. Also the new Big Wreck
Okay.
EP is really good. Um, but there's so much stuff that's good that's out right now.
Yeah.
We'll do like the end of year like best of thing,
Mhm.
and we kind of come up with our rankings and. But those would kind of be like the big ones from this year. There's another one. I'll just throw out a couple more. No Spoon. It's a new band. They're
Never heard.
awesome. And then if you like sort of King Crimson, like jazz fusion, but with some
Okay.
metal, there's a band
Mhm.
called the Anchorette that had a really cool album this year. I don't know.
Yeah. Cool.
Now I'm sounding like that guy, but
No, you're good because
there's some
I like listening to new stuff. So
yeah,
yeah, a
there's
lot.
been some really great stuff this year from bands that I didn't even know about. So
Nice. What other drummer influences do you have?
so many, countless.
Countless.
I guess I'll go somewhat chronologically. Like
Okay.
Ringo, I'm a huge Ringo fan. I will sit here for 2 hours and give an apology for Ringo and how he's amazing.
Well, we could have you back on to do that because I need to do that too. So
Yeah, I freaking love Ringo, but I just love the Beatles and blah 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 blah. I listen to the Beatles on some form every single day. Um, it's funny, like of the classic drummers, I'm not like the biggest John Bonham guy. Like I love Zeppelin, he's incredible, but like of that era, like I prefer like Keith Moon, let's say. I like kind of the busier, kind of more
okay.
sexy to
Yep.
me at least. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I like the idea that it feels like it could fall off the rails in any moment. Like I dig that
Mhm.
aspect, and that's a part of me that like loves metal or even loves some punk stuff or whatever. Like I like that it feels like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Whereas Bonham is like he's like the Buddy Rich of early heavy metal. It's like
Yeah.
technically so sound and so solid, and it sounds great and yada yada yada, and I love him. But and then probably into like Stuart Copeland, Neil Peart, obviously. Um, I still have a lot that I would say about Lars, and I love the guy. I mean, he's fallen off in his own way, but like again, some of the things he did and the sounds he created and the fills he had have influenced me so much. Um, and then of course into Portnoy. I mean, Portnoy's the big one. And there's
Yeah.
just like a treasure trove now of drummers that you can follow on Instagram that are all the way from technically just incredible to like doing really interesting stuff with digital tools and soundscapes. And Glenn Kotke from Wilco is one of my favorites. I love what he does. And I mean, my Instagram is literally like orthodontics and drums, and like 5% is like bass players because I love bass. I think it's the coolest
Yeah.
instrument. But so I could go on and on and on. I mean, I think what's true of me is that I like a diverse smattering of music, and I like simple music. It's like I don't have to have everything be so technical. Like drummers that can play like straight ahead. Like some of my favorite albums are drummers that just kind of play to the groove. Maybe not to the extreme of AC/DC and Phil Rudd or something like that. Like that's a little too boring for me. But
Yeah.
like let's say like Audio Slave's drummer, who was Rage Against the Machine's drummer. Like I love what he does. I love when stuff.
Brad Wilk?
Yeah, Brad Wilk, exactly.
Well, yeah.
You need to play like it doesn't have to be like heavy, let's say, but like it has to be intentional and strong. I don't like weak drumming. So I
Good
don't
groove.
yeah. And I like that's the thing I like about Neil and Mike. Like when they
Mhm.
hit something, there's an intent behind it. And it's why I
Exactly.
don't get into jazz as much and that kind of like string of drummers is because it just doesn't I don't know. It sounds crazy. It's just wimpy to me, So I like for things to feel strong, and that's like Stuart Copeland. I mean, he's gonna break a drum at some point, like that's what I
Yeah.
like. He has to
Yeah.
wear a glove because he would otherwise hurt his hand too much,
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
dig that.
Yeah.
That's what I missed with Dream Theater with Mangini. Is that no offense to the guy, it just
Yeah.
doesn't feel strong. It doesn't, it doesn't make me want to break something, and I want to break something every now and again.
For sure. So Achilles Priester, have you heard of him?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, he's one of my new favorites.
yeah. He's got
The
the all red drums. He
Yeah,
does
the
that whole thing.
octopus and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, he
So
tried out for Dream Theater, and
yeah,
was he with Angra there for a little bit? I think.
and Hanger as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's all these guys are better than I'll ever even be able to sniff at, But yeah, he's cool. I mean, again, like we're at a stage now where like the technical ability of drummers is so beyond what I ever even imagined. I remember seeing that video of Tony Royster Jr. when he was like 11 at like some drum festival and being like, I'm 23 and I'll never be as good as this 11-year-old. Now
Yeah.
it's like a 4-year-old that's better than me. It's like
I know.
this.
Yeah.
I just want to give up and quit.
For sure. A jazz musician or jazz drummer I would recommend. You probably heard of him, Louis Bellson. Hammered the
Yeah.
hell out of those drums. So
And there's some. I mean, you can't
started the
you
double
can't.
bass too. So
Yeah, it's just. And I was in jazz band in college, and like
yeah,
I like it, but it just doesn't speak to me the same as like rock music does.
I get it. Yeah, I'm the same way. That's why I only 2 or 3 like jazz drummers I really listen to a lot. Other than that, it's like, it's just it's not my thing so much. So real quick, we have some rapid
Yeah.
fire. You didn't know these
Come
ahead
on.
of time. They're easy.
All right.
Favorite rudiment.
Favorite what?
Rudiment.
That's funny. I'm not a big rudiment guy.
Okay.
That's the thing. I was self-taught. I never went through the rudiments. I've tried to come back to them as an adult, and
Mhm.
like, so it's probably like a double paradiddle or something. Like I like
Okay.
that, play it as a groove, but I wish I spoke that side of the language of drumming, and I don't. So
It's okay. I don't too much, but it's a fun one to kind of get going with. Click or no click?
either I probably prefer a performance where it's no click, but like Relapse, let's say, is like click, and it needs to be click because we're playing to tracks and stuff. But I find that like having in-ears in with a click, it disembodies you from the audience, and I don't like that. And so like playing at church with no click, I prefer that. I prefer to like feel it, and I don't wear like earplugs where my hearing shot already, so it's like I want to be in the thing. So yeah, no click if I had to choose.
So I'm 95% self-taught. So you're right, speaking right the same way I would. Double paradiddle, no click, preferably. Next one I have is double pedal or double kick.
Oh, It's funny. This is the first actual double kick kit I've ever had. I've just always there we go. I,
Thumbs up.
I've always been a double pedal guy, and then now I watch these drummers and they're doing everything I can do with a double pedal with one pedal, and I'm like, crap. I guess I should have figured out how to do that, but I got a double pedal very early on because I want to play Metallica.
Yeah,
And so no, I still like stink my double pedal into gigs, but they don't know because it's on a single kick. So
yeah, for
I guess
sure.
double pedal, yeah.
Okay, cool. Nylon or wood tip?
Wood tip. I hate
Okay,
nylon
I do
personally.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too. I don't like the way it sounds on the hi-hats and rides and stuff. So,
No.
odd time or 4/4?
4/4. As crazy as that may sound as a prog guy, just there's something about 4/4 that I just dig.
Okay.
And I love 6/8, so that's odd time. But like 6/8, like in rock music, is one of my favorites. But
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah. 5/4 or 6/8 are two of my favorites as well. So, yeah. Big drum kit or small drum kit?
Oh gosh. Why am I making these questions harder than they actually are? That's a great question. I don't know. I think like the older I get, small drum kit. I don't know. There's something to say about a drummer that literally just hi-hat, kick, snare, like what you can do behind that. It's
Mhm.
pretty cool. Was it Nate Smith, the drummer? He's like a groove-based drummer. Go look him up. Like, dude's just crazy. I mean, sort of like
Yeah.
from the Steve Jordan camp of
Okay.
drumming, like real groove based, kind of soul based drumming. That dude doesn't need a big drum kit. He's
Yeah.
killing it. Sput, who plays for Toto, he also plays for Ghost Note and Snarky Puppy. Like, I don't know if you know those bands, but he could play on a kit with 3 drums and it'd be better than somebody on 50 drums.
Yeah.
So to me, I think it's you get that kick, snare, hi-hat in the right balance. That's all you need.
Fair enough. And last one, studio or live?
I think I'm a studio guy, honestly. I'm such a perfectionist and I like what you can achieve in a studio. And that's probably like when I think of like the music from bands that I most go back to, it's studio. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And anything new you have coming up that we didn't discuss?
Man, no, I just my 7-year-old's got a basketball game later today, so I'm gonna go to that. I think my life is mostly I got 4 kids and I'm busy with that. I mean, I think the big thing musically, and it's weird to say this as someone who's not had an original band in so long, is I've got a prog band that's got an album coming out next year. And so we're working on it. We've got 6 songs. You can go to echoverse.band if you would like and see the website. I have a marketing agency, so we created that. I'm very proud of the website.
Nice.
But we have a 30-minute song that'll be on there that's really cool. And I love the music that we're writing. And I mean, the reality is in today's world, how many people will hear this thing? 100, 200? It's like, so
Yeah.
you're really just doing it for yourself. I mean, of course, I'd love for more people to hear it, but we're in 4 different areas. We're all like old dudes. So like, are we going to be hitting the road? Probably not. So, my dream is like, I'd love to like play a single prog event, and
Yeah.
maybe 109 people will be there and they'll love it. So that's kind of what I'm shooting for. It's a labor of love. And, art is best created for, I think, yourself. I think like you
Yeah.
do it
Yeah.
first because it means something to you. And then if other people enjoy it, awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll
That's the
see.
same way I look at it when we're doing
Yeah.
our thing. It's just like, you know what? We enjoy doing it. We love what
Yeah.
we're doing. And if other people dig it, then that's just a bonus. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah, in fact, in every time he's recording his drum tracks, we have to tell his guitarist to be quiet because he'll get so involved and he goes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll start clapping or
In
something.
the
like,
middle of
no,
recording.
no,
We can't
no.
That's
stop it.
cool.
The mics are like right here. You can't do that.
That's cool, man.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
hilarious.
So what are all the socials where our listeners can find you?
Oh, yeah, it was like personally, I'm always at Memphis Braces because I do braces in Memphis. But Echoverse is echoverse.band. It's funny, you try to name a band these days and
Yeah,
there's no
yeah,
major Echoverse, like we're getting it trademarked or whatever, but can't get the social media handles you want. So it's like Echoverse.band. Yeah, there we go. So, but yeah, check us out. We're the only, it's actually a Christian progressive rock band. So we're all believers and that'll inform a lot of the lyrical content. So you would talk about a niche. That's a niche there. Christian
Very cool.
progressive rock.
Yeah, I
But yeah,
think
check
Neil
us
Morton's
out.
really the only other one that really does that. So
There's a handful of other ones, and there's, more Christian metal bands and Christian progressive rock bands, but yeah, there's not just a ton floating around. He's the biggest one, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Ken
cool.
Ken Mary has a lot of stuff going on out here
Yeah,
with his producing company.
yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. We really, really appreciate it.
This is fun, man. This is
Yeah.
not the sort of thing I get to do very often, so it's cool that there's a drummer podcast out there, and I'll be listening to you guys for sure. So thanks for having me on. And
Of
if anyone's
course.
made it through this thing, that's what I always say at the end of my podcast. If you're still listening to this thing, you're amazing. So
Thank
you,
Very, very amazing.
yeah.
Awesome.
Drumming up
Cool.
conversation.